Welcome. This is going to be kind of a depressing episode. We wanted to cover it. We will be having an episode on how the Supreme Court backed Donald Trump in his fight against the states, basically giving him unprecedented power to enact his executive agenda with no ability for the states to push back for the first time ever in American history. That's coming. But a lot of people were dismayed in California by the fact that it seemed the federal government completely backed up Donald Trump with supporting his new spending cuts bill. Now he calls it a tax cut bill and says there's a lot of other good things in there, funding for this, funding for that, tax cuts for this and that. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. What we're going to be focusing on is how the big, beautiful bill is ugly and horrifying for California, no matter what you think. Let's get right into it. Big, beautiful betrayal to California. We're going to be covering a couple articles. Here's one. Big, ugly California top officials excoriate Trump's big bill. Berkeley side, this is draconian. We'll be pulling a lot from the Desert Sun, Trump's big, beautiful bill. What does it mean? And then also, this was great. The governor did a fantastic job on this one. I know there's this or that opinions of the governor, but on this, and it always seems like whenever Newsom has to stand up to Trump, he does outstanding. This had outstanding coverage of the cuts to the bill. So we'll be covering all that. Let's start first with the governor's introduction, because he does a pretty good job. So I believe it's this one. Governor Newsom slammed the Republicans over the proposed cuts to the federal Medicaid program and the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP. The healthcare regarding healthcare taxes, and put an estimated $28 billion of federal funding at risk for California, and could result in a loss of coverage for up to 3.4 million Californians. The bill would also cut federal funding for SNAP in California to 2.8 to 5.4 billion. And beginning in January 2027, states would be required to conduct eligibility determinations for the Affordable Care Act, aka Obamacare. This bill would also require states to implement work requirements beginning in 2027, which would result in an estimated loss of up to $22.3 billion in federal funds and up to 3 million California enrollees. Additionally, billions of dollars in SNAP cuts. The California proposed at a reduction rate of at least $1.25 billion, $1.25 billion in federal fund changes due to eligibility rules and loss of an additional at least $178 million in nutritional grants. So we're looking at, I believe, around 700,000 people. Here's another one that did a breakdown. President Trump's long proposed bill, right? About 15 million people are in Medi-Cal, California's medical program, the governor said during a press conference, and they're at risk of losing health coverage. The bill also brings changes to the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program called CalFresh here, SNAP federally, and at least 735,000 recipients would be at risk. The bill qualifies able-bodied Medicaid recipients to work 80 hours a month or qualify for an exemption. This is only going to make it more difficult for people to qualify for Medi-Cal and food benefits. The bill also says that if you are undocumented, you can't get any assistance on the child tax credit. So what we're looking at roughly is about 735,000 Californians could potentially lose SNAP medical benefits. We're also looking at about 3.4 million Californians could lose health coverage. So 3.4 million Californians could lose health coverage. About 700,000 people could lose SNAP. So 700,000 Californians could lose SNAP who are dependent on food assistance, and about 3.4 million Californians could lose health care coverage. Additionally, undocumented immigrants would not get any tax benefits, even if they pay into the system. And collectively, we're looking at about $28 billion in losses, plus another $5.4 billion, plus another 22. We're looking at about $35 billion in losses to California. So let me write this down. About 700,000 plus people lose food, and 3.4 million lose health care, to a loss of about 40 billion. Oops. So that's roughly what we're talking about is going to be the impact to California. Is about 700,000 Californians are going to lose food access, and about 3.4 million Californians will lose healthcare access, for roughly a total of $40 billion in losses to California. That's going to be the effect of the big, beautiful bill. A couple slides to draw this in a little bit more. Let me get rid of that banner. 1.2 billion reduction in federal funds due to eligibility changes, 178 million in losses to nutritional education grants, about $1 to $4 billion in annual cost shifts to the state and counties. That's just for food assistance programs. We're looking at about 305 million also being cut to Planned Parenthood. So abortions, contraceptions, STDs, abortion access, they're going to cut 305 million of that here in California. They're also going to put nearly monthly increases for healthcare for nearly 2 million Californians. That goes into that 2.3 million Californians who could be threatened. And also we're looking at about 3 million, about 3 million Californians could be impacted and lose health coverage because of new paperwork requirements, and about 400,000 over 6-month eligibility. So again, roughly, I know there's a lot of facts and figures, but roughly we're looking at about 700,000 plus are going to lose food access benefits, and about 3.4 million are going to lose healthcare benefits, for a total loss of about $40 billion. Okay, now that we've outlined all of that, let me show you why this is ridiculous. Okay, so first thing you need to know is that California is a donor state. Oops, sorry. So we're going to look at this chart here from USA Facts team, which states contribute the most and least to federal revenue. So you'll see states that paid more into the federal system in this article. This is from 2023. They talk about New York, but if you look at the bottom there, you'll see that California pays the most. New York is just below California, and they're in the 300 to 350 billion range. We're in the 500 to 550 billion range. So New York is traumatized at paying $89 billion more. Yeah, you're in the loss of 3 to 350 billion. We're in the loss of 5 to 550 billion. So this chart shows that California loses more money by far compared to anyone else in America subsidizing the entire country. So California pays the farthest, the most, subsidizing America anywhere. Here's another study by the Rockefeller Institute. See that giant orange bar there, the only one that's bright orange? That's us in California, showing that we pay by far the most out of anybody. And most states just take money. So again, we contribute the most. We're the most hit donor state. We by far pay the most in. Multiple sources showing that. Goes up to the current estimates. And here's roughly what the picture looks like. I want to explain to you how stupid this is. So in the top right is donor state status. If you're blue, you take money. If you're orange, you don't take money. See how California and Washington and Minnesota and Connecticut and New York and Massachusetts are orange in the top right map? Orange states contribute more. Blue states are welfare queens who suck up money. So just pay attention to that for a minute, okay? So everything blue in the top right corner is a welfare queen. They take money, more than they ever get. Now compare it to the map in the bottom right corner. That's the 2024 election, states that voted for Trump versus Kamala Harris. Now look at the map on the far left. Red states who are welfare queens. If you are red on the map on the far left, you both voted for Donald Trump and are a welfare queen state. So on the map on the left, if you are coded in map on the left, if you're coded in red, if you're color coded in bright red, you voted for Trump and you are dependent upon liberal states giving you money. So these people who voted for Donald Trump are saying, let's cut funds to all these people and let's cut all this to California and really stick it to California. Okay. Why are we financially contributing to you? All these people that voted for Trump so that he could do this, look at the map. The overwhelming majority of America by states voted for Trump and is a recipient of federal funds from California. So the people who are cutting funding to California are people who take money from California, and their best offer is to cut money to us. They take money from us to support them, and then they vote for a guy who's going to cut money to Californians and make 3.4 million Californians lose health coverage and 734,000 Californians lose access to food when we contribute more to the system and support them. Look at that. The majority of the country is a welfare recipient state and voted for Trump. How dumb. Just to back that up, here you go. So in California, this is a map on the right of total Medi-Cal enrollment by county. So these are people who need healthcare assistance, a version of Obamacare. Now, you notice in the Central Valley where I live, we're looking at 54% for Fresno County, 64% for Tulare, 45% for Kings, 54% for Kern, 54% for San Joaquin, 54% for Madera, 47% for Stockton. So right there in the Central Valley, in the center of California, you can see that bright orange square. A lot of those places have half of their population dependent on healthcare. Now look at the map on the far left. That's who voted for Trump. What you'll see is that a lot of the counties that voted for Trump are also counties who are dependent on healthcare, which is going to be cut by Trump. This is how dumb this is. The people who are dependent on federal assistance in California voted for a guy who's going to cut healthcare assistance. They are matched by other Republicans who across America voted for Trump, who cut funding to California, even though we subsidize them. Really dumb. And here's why this is really uncool. They're also going to make it where if you're undocumented, you don't get tax benefits. Let's see here. Child tax credits. So the bill also increases and makes permanent the child tax credits. However, if you don't have a social security number for your child, you cannot get any of the benefits from that. So they're changing the tax law so that if you're undocumented, you get none of the child tax credits benefits. Well, here's the problem. Undocumented immigrants pay taxes. Sorry, fact. That's from 2025. So about $59.4 billion, according to one estimate, and then another estimate in 2022 was $97 billion. Now, the entire concept of America was built on no taxation without representation, a slogan that originated during the Revolution, expressed grievance by the colonists who were taxed by the British government without having elected representatives in the British Parliament. So America was built on the idea of you take my taxes, but I don't get anything for them, and I don't get to be in charge of the government. Well, why is it fair for undocumented people to pay taxes and then be denied benefits? So you're paying taxes, you're undocumented, you're paying taxes, and they're going to cut any benefits you get. When the entire point of the country was, you can't take my taxes and make sure I don't get anything or do anything to take care of me. Ridiculous. Also, it's going to get worse. So Like we talked about 700,000 lose food benefits and about 3.4 will lose health care. Total loss of $40 billion. We're in a donor state. Let's make it even scarier. There's a recession coming. Yeah. See all those articles 2 days ago, 5 days ago? Let me remove the banner so you can see this. Johns Hopkins University, Investopedia, MSN, MarketWatch, Wall Street Journal, they're talking about a recession's coming. What do you think is going to happen when a recession comes and you've cut benefits to the poorest people? Here's the poor segment of society. They need these healthcare benefits. They need these food benefits. They can't pay for it. And the federal government's going to cut funding to California, even though we pay more in, and we're going into recession. We're going to into a period where poor people are hurt worse than they've ever been and more in need of assistance. And we just cut off healthcare and food right before we go into this recession. So as bad as it is, it's going to be even worse. When the recession hits, people are going to be in a massive amount of pain, and the assistance that they normally could count on was cut to them by the federal government, even though we didn't vote for that guy and we subsidize America and put way more in than we're supposed to. It's still okay to cut everything to us. We'll have more soon. Take care.